Right. Since you've been away, one thing has changed. Well, we've had an Ipswich fixture moved to midweek in the last between round 45 and 46 because Coventry obviously got to the Cup semi-final. We've had Leicester breaching FFP, and you can tell me from a player's point of view whether that will make utterly no difference to their mentality. They are under an embargo in terms of new signings and contracts now, but we know what we knew when we left, when you headed off for sunny south of France with Leeds at the top, just made that overtake. Leicester in second. Why don't I just bring the table up so everyone can see it? Leeds at the top on 82. Leicester in second, 1 goal behind, but with a game in hand. Ipswich in third. Southampton, 8 points back from Ipswich. But remember, they have 2 games in hand on Leeds and Ipswich, and they have away trips to the entire top 4. For anybody who's seen my 1 to 24, Sam, I've got nothing moving. So I've got Southampton in 4th with just too much to do. I think they're going to stay there. I've got Leeds winning it. I think the momentum's going to stay with them. I think it's going to be so close between Leicester and Ipswich that I think it will go down to the last day and a very small amount of points. But I just feel at this juncture, Sam, a game in hand, the goal difference and the extra point is enough of an advantage in a tight race for Leicester City. Do you want to take me through from the table as it is at the moment? Southampton, Ipswich, Leicester and Leeds. How do you see it ending up?
This is going to make for a really boring podcast, isn't it, if I agree with you? But I'm afraid I'm going to have to.
You've got to say it how you feel it, Sam.
Yeah, I'm going to have to agree with you. I think Southampton... Yeah, I think there's something in that run just coming a little bit too early, maybe, or taking something out of them when they stumbled, obviously, at the end of that incredible winning run. So, and the prospect of having to face the top 3, I think, over the last few weeks is just such a monumental challenge in front of them. If they were to achieve it, it would just be, story for the ages, wouldn't it? So I think for those reasons, I can't see them moving. And that would, of course, inevitably, you would imagine, set up a game against West Bromwich Albion. So there's no favourite there, I wouldn't say, over 2 games, if that is to be the playoffs. Sorry for jumping ahead. But so that's how I see them finishing.
So
I think
can I just ask one question? If Daniel Farke was in the dugout at Southampton with 2 titles, how would you be feeling a bit differently about them being able to plough through and get this incredible run that they'd need to make it right through?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. I think it's probably greater than who's in the dugout. Obviously, come on to Daniel Farke in a minute in slightly different situation, but no, I don't think that matters really. I think Russell Martin has shown himself to be really capable. This jump to a club with the resources, with better players, with bigger egos. I think they were all the questions that were rightly kind of asked of him start of this season. And after such an incredibly difficult end to the summer and autumn, early autumn, they've turned into a great side this season. Really enjoyed watching them, and they're going to go close still. But obviously they're going to have to do it in my mind through the playoffs. And yeah, taking me on to Ipswich, I think, the conversation that we were having now could have been different had they held on to win the points at Cardiff. And I don't think that, derails them completely or, finishes their chances. I think it's just circumstantially they're 3 points worse off. And for the reasons that you stated, the goals for column, and just the quality of the 2 other sides, I just think it's going to be really difficult to stay with those 2 now that the prize is right there on the horizon. I just think that Leicester will get their act together and Leeds fully have their act together at the moment.
Can I just bring you on to Leicester now, and we'll just try and play devil's advocate, because I'm seriously a Rizzler paper. I could completely change my mind after Easter if Leicester have had a bad Easter and Ipswich have had a good Easter. just look at those Leicester fixtures coming up. You've got to go to Bristol City and you're going first on. There's going to be some brilliant days, Sam, where we could have the lead changing, 4 times during the day because of the staggered kickoffs on Sky. I'm just looking at the next 3. Well, actually, just generally, you can make an argument there. I know Ipswich have got to play Southampton. They've got the local derby against Norwich. They've got to go to Hull and Coventry. But just that run of Norwich, who are in fine form, Birmingham now will happily leave there with a 0-0 draw and 25% possession being Gary Rowett's returned. And Millwall away, you just don't know, do you? Trip down to Plymouth, and then you've got West Brom and Southampton as well. So even though I feel it's going to be tight and I feel Leicester will make it, it's still hard work, April, for Leicester, isn't it?
It is, although I think their tougher run of games comes later in the season. I think that week or whatever it is in late April, West Bromwich Albion, Southampton, Preston, I think that's the trickiest spell for them. However, I think the next 3 games, I'm not going to say season defining, but I think the next 3 games for Ipswich Town determines what happens amongst the top 3. So we're talking Blackburn away, which I think is a really tough away game. Probably I will state the reasons why a little bit later in today's podcast. And then, of course, Southampton and then Norwich in the derby. So if Ipswich get through those 3 games with a really good points return, I think we'll know so much more about what their challenge is going to be ultimately the tail end of the season. So I think Leicester, the fixtures are okay now. And I think it will be dependent on how motivated Bristol City are. I think to play for Liam Manning, who needs a bit of a result in that game. And then maybe, Norwich is a tough game. We know Norwich are going brilliantly. Maybe that Millwall game actually is probably the trickiest maybe of the 4. Actually going there, when it's one of the bigger sides with the bigger followings in the division, the Millwall fans and the Millwall team invariably turn up. So that would be the one maybe where they'd have to keep their composure and hope that their quality can shine through. But I just, I've had the benefit of seeing Leeds and Leicester recently, albeit against Chelsea, in the flesh. And I probably did walk away from that second game against Leicester, even though Chelsea required 2 last-minute goals or whatever it was to get through. I still left thinking, there is 1 or 2 problems there. There is 1 or 2 deficiencies. And for that reason, I'm not going to tease it. For that reason, I think Leeds will probably win the title now. That's my
Before we get to Leeds, can I just take you back to Ipswich? And just can I get your players' take on... We've got this artificial break now for Ipswich, whereby they were due to play Saturday, and then... the last one's on Saturday as well, through the last few games of the season. And now, so they play your difficult 3, and then that parlays into a 3-game week to the 13th of April. Then, with the Coventry game gone, Ipswich then have 14 days between the 13th of April and the 27th, and end the season with a 3-game week, Hull, Coventry, Huddersfield. I know you players always tell me, man, I just want to keep going, rhythm. But what is that going to be like if it's in Ipswich's hands and they know that banging out 9 points in that last week will get them promotion whilst they watch everybody else go? And remember, Leicester play Southampton in that time as well. What can you give me your players' take on that?
I think every player is different. I would see that as a huge benefit. I would suggest having an opportunity to rest up, possibly go away, maybe. I don't know. They probably had the opportunity over the last fortnight or whatever to have a little bit of time away from it. But I just think you could do something pretty unique with that, couldn't you? If it's in their hands or if they've got the opportunity to get promoted over those last 3 games, Kieran McKenna could think outside the box and approach it whichever way he likes. Approach it a little bit like a playoff campaign, maybe, where you could get the players away from the training ground, refresh, however you want to go about it. So yeah, that's a really interesting facet to it, as is that Leicester game against Southampton. Is that their game in hand, in essence?
That's Leicester's game in hand.
Yeah.
Southampton, remember, got 2, haven't they? They've got to play Preston as well.
Yeah, so that's interesting for Leicester. Should it come to that, But yeah, like I said, I think the next 3 games will know so much more about probably how many teams are going to be taking this this automatic promotion race down to the wire.
So just give me your feelings then on Leeds, because this is this is new for you. You've kind of backed Leicester for the most part, which, to be fair, most of us have, haven't we? And is it just the fact that Leeds have seemingly done the hard running at the vital time with 12 wins in 13? They look so settled, stable, and consistent now. And they got all the hard away games out of the way in the first half of the season, which you mentioned back in November, didn't you?
Yeah, well, I think, if you gave me 5 minutes now to go and scribble flaws in Leicester's makeup, problems that have arose over the last month, and do the same for Leeds United, I'd probably have a full page with Leicester, and I'd have very little on the Leeds page.
Great point.
Plus, I think, Leeds have got so many players that are in form. They got 11 players that are in form. You could argue, forward players, abundantly, confident, scoring goals, and defensively they're incredible as well. Is it 3 goals conceded since the start of this run? 1 from
I think they've
play.
all been from set plays as well. It's something like that, or maybe
Will
only
Keane
one from.
Yeah, Will Keane got that scrappy one, didn't he, when Preston scored first minute? I think it ricocheted around, but I don't think it was from a dead ball. But certainly the Huddersfield one was, and the Faust one for Leicester was. So they're conceding nothing. Their players are banging form. And yeah, Daniel Farke just maybe does come into play right now. And
yes, he does, yeah. And
also maybe the other point is it doesn't matter how you get up, but I just think with that support and with the feeling around the place, if it did go down to the last game, to secure the title, I'd fancy them at home to Southampton. And I know that they've shown frailties in big games when they've nearly been over the line before, and that's what the stick that people hit the Leeds supporters with, or whatever, give them the jibes. I think they'd get it done if that was the type of scenario that played out, and maybe even maybe even Leicester might be up as well by then, and it'll be a kind of shootout final day for the title or whatever.
Wow. In the comments, please, everybody, remember, as I always say, you have no credibility in this debate unless you write down in the comments 1, 2, 3, 4. Give us your 4 down there. How do you see that top 4?
Let me just say though, for Leicester, because I didn't really give you any reason as to why they're going to turn their form around. I do think having Ricardo out, having Ndidi out, having the ability now to pick Vardy probably if he returns, and Daka, and I don't know where they are with Iheanacho. He's obviously not featured too much, but I just think circumstantially they've faced quite a lot of problems in the last few weeks. So listen, they're still a really good team, really well coached, and they've got loads of good players. So I think when the push comes to shove, they'll get their act together, and I think those aforementioned players will be a big reason for that.